Hello, nonprofit leaders. I'm Sarah Olivieri, your host, and this podcast is here to assist people like you, executive directors, board members, and other nonprofit leaders, make a bigger impact with insights, tips, and lessons learned from nonprofit leaders and experts. Having been an executive director, a board member, and now a consultant and coach, I truly understand the challenges you face. And that's why I'm here. I'm all about working smarter, not harder, so you can make a bigger impact without the burnout. And so is our sponsor, DonorBox. DonorBox isn't just a suite of helpful fundraising tools, it's a partner that helps you raise more money and supports you in retaining your donors. I love their forward-thinking approach. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. And don't forget to sign up for the Inspired Nonprofit Leadership newsletter, where you'll get bite-sized, actionable tips just for nonprofit leaders like you, delivered weekly to your inbox. Sign up at inspirednonprofitleadership.com/sign up. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. So today we're going to be talking about another framework. I really enjoyed talking about various frameworks for staying organized and that I have used and have been inspired by over the years. And today we are talking about OKRs. So I'm excited to dive into that in just a few moments. Let's talk about OKRs. So OKRs stands for objectives and key results. And it was kind of a system that was actually, I think it was Intel who came up with it. And they were in a phase where they had a lot of tough competition and they needed to really make a big leap ahead, or they were not gonna do well in this with some stiff competition coming in. And so they developed this way of working that helped them make like massive progress in significantly less time. And it was called OKRs, Objective and Key Results. And there are now books about it, and lots of companies have implemented them. So the basic idea is that you come up with a clear objective, something that you want to achieve, and you break down the kind of key results or milestones, key things, key metrics, if you will, that need to happen in order for this objective to be achieved. So what works about using OKRs? What works is getting everybody focused on one objective, right? Across teams, maybe like getting everyone really hyper focused on what they're all trying to achieve together as a team. And this is kind of one of those steps towards kind of delegating outcomes, which is that we want to empower our entire teams, if possible, to all contribute as much as they can to getting the result that we're looking for, or the objective we're trying to achieve, and not just be locked into like, this is my job, these are the tasks I do as part of my job, but think, what can I do better or differently that will achieve this milestone? It also works because milestone, goal, objective, or one of the key results. It also works because it gets everybody working together as a team. And it works because of breaking down, right? It's not just the O, set the objective and everybody go. We're breaking it down into more manageable, focused chunks that either we can kind of work on linearly or take a divide and conquer type approach. So those are all some really great things. Here are some things I don't love about OKRs and why I don't teach them or use them as is in my work with my clients. So one is, what exactly is an objective and how exactly is it different from a result? I really don't like it when the language, the specific words we use, I shouldn't say I don't like it. I find it not very effective when the language we use isn't specifically clear. And I feel like what happened with objectives and key results is it sounded cool. OKRs sounded cool. And before it started being mass taught out into the world, no one ever did a language check to say, like, is this really the best language we could be using? And because it's a little bit ambiguous, I have heard people teach what an objective is and what a key result is in very different ways. And I have seen people interpret what an objective and key result is in very different ways, which means there's not a lot of consistency, and your team even could not all be on the same page, unless, of course, they received a very clear training that defined it much better. But still, if we can define it much better, let's see if we can use a word that clarifies it from the get-go. So what would an improvement on it be? And this is an improvement not just on the language, but on the concept. So I like to think about, when we're setting an objective, actually to clarify that setting the outcome that we want to achieve and the actions or tactics that we're going to take to achieve that outcome, right? So instead of saying an objective could be, and I like to define outcome, right? Because we could just say action reaction, that an outcome is whatever happens as a result of some action you took. But specifically, when I work with outcomes, I don't have a better word yet, but if you think of one, let me know. I'm talking about things that are outside of your direct control. So an outcome might be raise your revenue by a certain amount. That means other people giving you their money. You don't have direct control over that, but you can certainly influence them to purchase your products, make donations to your nonprofit, whatever it is. You can take actions that make it much more likely for them to give you their money. So rather than breaking down outcomes and key results, I think it's really helpful to clarify objectives and clear results. See, the language gets loosey-goosey easily. I like to clarify the outcome that you don't have direct control over, that you're all trying to achieve together, and then break down what are the key actions and specific metrics that we can measure in our own actions, as well as key metrics that tell us if we're achieving that outcome, the result that we're not directly in control over. So we end up kind of setting three things. What's the outcome? What are some key metrics that tell us if we're achieving that outcome, so we can know that the progress is happening? We can make it visual, we can make it exciting, we could gamify it, something like that. And then what are the activities or projects or tactics we're going to do? So like maybe we're going to have a big initiative to do a bunch of cold call outreach to bring new people in, or maybe we're going to go build a bunch of new relationships and go to a certain number of events, right, that we're going to attend. So, and then we can set those type of goals, which we do have direct control over. And we can also have key metrics for those, or I like to call them critical success factors, right? The something that tells us that we're achieving. And then we can celebrate like we did what we set out to do. And we can also then evaluate if what we set out to do is having the outcome that we don't have direct control over that we want. So I think, to me, that thinking of what do we want to achieve that we don't have control over, I like to call it an outcome. If you have a better word, let me know, because technically, I guess an outcome could still be something that is a result that we do have control over. But in any case, outcomes is the word I'm using. I've defined it for you. And then defining the things that we're going to do. And you could certainly have a huge outcome, like some people, a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, and then break that into sub outcomes. And then once you feel like the sub outcome is manageable, is likely to happen within a reasonable amount of time, then break down the goals around your own actions or tactics that you're going to take. And I think that is a clearer, more precise way of using the things that worked in objectives and key results, but it's like an iteration of it and it becomes easier to teach because we're really clarifying the difference that we mean between the ultimate objective and separating out what we don't have control over from what we do have control over, which is completely missing from OKRs, and I think is really critical when we are building plans and strategies. That's all I have for you today. It's such a pleasure to be with you, and I will see you next time.
You've been listening to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode or the bonus episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share with your friends and colleagues. Tune in every week for more useful insights and wisdom on nonprofit leadership. Thanks so much for all you do for the communities you serve. Until next time, all the best.